Welcome back to the Crypto Clown World Channel podcast. It is the 20th of April 2024, a 420 holiday. And I have my co-host, as always, Christopher Lundy, with me here in the building. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. Do you have your 420 available for 420 day, Jason?
A little more than I should, to be honest. More than available. More than available, sir. Hope things are well on your end as well.
They are. It's a warm day. Lots of work to do outside. Got some Pennsylvania Amish cherry tomatoes planted today that I saved from last season that actually volunteered. It's a beautiful tomato. It's a dark purple color with the blue-green lacing all around it in a spiral. It's a beautiful tomato. Tastes really good, too. It's by itself, this tomato could easily replace any marinara sauce. It's just bursting with flavor.
Excellent, excellent. Yes, we like flavorful tomatoes on 420. So,
Yes,
with
we
that
do.
in mind, sir, markets have been a little choppy over the last
Oh, God,
24 to 48 hours. So, with that in mind, I think you had some interesting points from what you were telling me while we were speaking offline. So, I'll let you get the show started today, and then we'll take a look at what the market might be doing.
Yes, it's a bit of a mixed bag today because I decided I wanted to go a little bit more into the markets, into the numbers and geopolitics, and focus more on the OSINT side of the crypto thing, because I haven't focused on that as much because of the, overarching importance of looking at the geopolitical issues. But now that things have now there's a little bit of a lull, it's important to focus on this. So for the audience's benefit, this is coming from Protos.com. Now, Protos.com is shall we say, a conglomerate or a gathering of security researchers, journalists, and people that are involved in the crypto space that are looking out for the crypto community. They found the massive data harvesting operation inside of the Ledger Live app that I put on blast to all of my contacts and advised everyone to get rid of the ledgers as a result of that, because it was sending user data inside of Ledger Live to up to 75 different third parties simultaneously, and had tracking events for almost everything you do in the wallet, from the size of your balances to number of clicks, page visits. It was enormous. So what they uncovered and what they continue to uncover is rather telling. Now, this article that I'm referring to is published on December the 7th of 2023, and the author is, of course, Protos staff. Most of their articles are Protos staff because they prefer to, in most cases, remain anonymous for their own protection, because they're uncovering activities of very large players in the market. And for this reason, they are very careful. So the title of the article is Examining Cumberland, Tether's Biggest Client Left Standing. Now, I've got a little excerpt leader that I grabbed from the article that I'm going to put forward first. Now, Protos analysis from 2021 showed that Sam Bankman-Fried's Alameda Research and Cumberland had received the majority of all USDT ever made. And since then, Alameda has gone bust, as we know. Its largest shareholder, Sam Bankman-Fried, is now in jail for the next 25 years. Now, Protos originally published the Tether papers in late 2021. And when they published them, Alameda at the time was responsible for at least $36.7 billion in USDT issuance, and Cumberland for $23.7 billion at a minimum. Now, this was less than 3 years ago. This was in late 2021, when we were still kind of in the distribution stage of the last bull market, where people were taking profits towards the end of that year. So what else is in this article? Well, now, Cumberland, they're a subsidiary of Chicago-based DRW, and that's named after Donald R. Wilson. Now, DRW is a very, very important commodities trading firm. They previously gone to blows with the CFTC. They're a big player in the space. Now, the CFTC filed a lawsuit in November 2018 against DRW, alleging that they were manipulating, quote, illiquid markets, close quote. But DRW won the case in the court ruling, where it stated that it was not illegal to be smarter than your counterparties in a swap transaction. That was the quote. Quote, it is not illegal to be smarter than your counterparties in a swap transaction, close quote. That's a rather suspicious ruling. It's almost a way of telling the regulators that if they're stupid, that or some sort of pejorative phrase is utilized, then that somehow absolves it. So I find that text to be very telling. Now, Cumberland's been focused on the cryptocurrency markets ever since it launched, and they launched a decade ago in 2014. So they got a long industry history, which means that when the SEC comes calling and needs a better understanding of the nature of the trading, the agency will turn to Cumberland for that understanding. So in many cases, the SEC went to Cumberland for gaining an understanding as to how the OTC market for Bitcoin actually functioned in the first place, because they simply did not know. So they serve a wide variety of different purposes. And they were interacting with some big names, right? So they were market maker on Binance. The large majority of USDT issued to Cumberland was sent directly to Binance, approximately 79% of it. Smaller amounts were sent to other exchanges, which included Poloniex, FTX, Bitfinex, Huobi, which is now HTX, and OKX. And Cumberland issued USDT on Ethereum, but it also issued it on Omni and Tron as well. And Alameda Research primarily issued USDT on Tron, but it also issued it on Ethereum too. But primarily it was Tron that Alameda Research issued USDT with. And Cumberland interacted with other trading firms, including Peritone Capital, Max Victory Wealth Management, ZB Trade, among others. That they being Protos dubbed Shylong's Web. I don't know why they called it that. But FTX's debtors actually sent Cumberland stablecoins. They even put up an address that was marked or believed to be that of Alameda Research's USDT wallet that was labeled by both Breadcrumbs and Arkham Intelligence. And interestingly, they did several test transactions. Alameda Research sent like $1.83 in BUSD, $1.82 in DAI, and $1.81 in Paxos Standard USDP to Cumberland back on March 17th of 2023. And then they followed that up with much larger transactions, such as 2.8 million BUSD, 2.1 million in DAI, and 138 grand in USDP. And so there were several very large transfers going there. But I'm not going to go through the rest of the article. I'll leave that to the audience. I did send you a link, Jason, if you want to put that in the show notes. But I think that's a good article to read, because with that much issuance, it's clear that we're not dealing with a stable coin that has its users' best interest at heart. And being the dominant stable coin in the market, these types of interactions with FTX raise some very serious questions. So do your due diligence, ladies and gentlemen. This is an example of what doing your due diligence is. Go to protos.com, get yourself a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, and start reading. Let's move on to our next talking point. So the U.S. House of Representatives passed a bill today, and a pretty large one, for an additional $60.8 billion in aid for Ukraine and $26 billion in aid for Israel. And the House chanted Ukraine loudly, and Ukrainian flags are being waved by members of the House of Representatives inside of the chamber while it was going on. This is very telling, especially considering that the large majority of U.S. Patriot missile systems, multi-launch rocket systems, troops, mercenaries lie dead or destroyed all throughout Ukraine. Of course, we had the terrorist attack that happened at Crocus City Hall in Moscow. I believe it was last month in March. So we've got, or within the last month at least. So we got that going on, and saber rattling in this context is going to continue. But interestingly, the bill contains $0.00 for the border at the exact same time that the House sent articles of impeachment to the Senate to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas, who is the head of the Department of Homeland Security, which was established, interestingly, after another coup, September 11th. So it's interesting how the halls of the establishment look more like Black Mirror with every day. So that took place, and they also it was also passed. Another bill was passed to essentially compel TikTok to forcibly sell or leave the United States of America permanently. I think they're probably going to end up doing the latter. And the House also passed another measure to confiscate Russian funds to hand to Ukraine. This is the level of desperation. The United States is, based upon these actions, very close to bankruptcy today versus a year ago, much closer. And we can see this because the United States Navy has been engaged in piracy by stealing Iranian vessels that have large amounts of munitions, such as missiles, multi-launch rocket systems, things of this nature. There was one that was stolen within the last several weeks that was redirected towards Ukraine. So they're pirating vessels and they're stealing Russian money to send to Ukraine. This is going to have a significant impact on American prestige. It will basically bankrupt the US dollar because every country on earth is going to look at that action and say, you know what? The United States is probably going to steal all of our money too. And what are they going to do? They're going to pull their systems out of SWIFT and they're going to go towards BRICS. So I think this is being done on purpose to sink the US economy, not just go after TikTok. Because we all know, at least privately, who is primarily behind this attack on TikTok. And I'm not pro TikTok. I've never used it. It's a surveillance nightmare. But that being the case with TikTok, there are aspects to what is happening in the Levant that certain powerful people don't want to be told, right? Speaking of some very bizarre events that took place over the last 48 hours, another person lit himself on fire, Jason. Another burner came around. This one, his name is Max, either Azzarello or Azzarello. I don't know, or Azzarello. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Could be pronounced any of those ways. He came to New York City with a sign held above his head not long before he lit himself on fire. And the sign read, "Trump is with Biden and they're about to fascist coup us." And purported to light himself on fire. But very interestingly, if you look at his body after it was set on fire, his skin is a gray color and none of his hairs are burned off. But if you look at the immolation, it looks like his entire body is on fire. So this has made national news. And I'm not going to make any assumptions here, but the fact that there was no burn bag placed on his body, and that's a very basic procedure if you're working in healthcare. And I myself am not a healthcare practitioner, but I remember many members of my family, and I actually used to work in a hospital myself at one point. That is very suspicious. So let's not forget, ladies and gentlemen, there's lots of deep fakes. There's lots of AI out there. There's lots of stuff going on. So especially as it relates to wars and people that want to start chaos and divide us against each other in this country, be very cautious as to what you believe in terms of what you're told, and double check, because there's going to be a lot of atrocity propaganda. There's going to be a lot of very bellicose rhetoric and bellicose statements and even more bizarre turns of events that will lead you to mistrust your eyes, right? So double check, triple check, do your due diligence. Now, there's a couple of things I wanted to speak to on crypto that are important. One is, that everyone that listens to me on this podcast or knows me personally would understand that I'm very big on privacy. And there is now a new update for the official Monero GUI wallet, version 0.18.3.3, and the Trezor Model T firmware, which is version 2.7.0. So if you have the official Monero GUI wallet or the Trezor Model T hardware wallet, make sure you install those updates. It's very important to stay on top of updates for hardware wallets and software wallets as soon as they're released. So I recommend checking for updates at least every couple of weeks or once a month, regardless of what hardware or software you're using as it relates to crypto. And interesting price comparison that I wanted to give to everybody, because we just had the halving happen this week. And I wanted to compare Bitcoin's performance with Theta and T-Fuel's performance from May of 2020's halving to April 2024's halving. So May 2020 was the third halving event, and at that time, Bitcoin's price was $8,800, and as of the fourth halving, it was $64,000. That's a 7.3x move. Okay, Theta in May of 2020 was 14 cents, and today it's $2.07. That's a 14.8x move. And Theta Fuel in May of 2020 was 41.8, just under half a cent. So a little over 4/10 of a cent, like 0.00418, something like that. And this month it got up to 8.8 cents for a 21x move. So that means that both Theta and T Fuel, if you held them from the last halving to this one, would have outperformed your Bitcoin investment by 2x and 3x respectively. So it's probably a good idea to look into the Theta ecosystem, because at the time of the third halving, Theta just crossed its, I think it's third or fourth year of existence at that point as a company, maybe second or third as actually having the tokens available to purchase, Theta and T-Fuel. So I found that to be very interesting. Now, not all altcoins are going to show this type of trajectory between halvings, and I found that to be very interesting, especially for anybody that is a Theta holder. That shows a long-term price appreciation that is in orders of magnitude larger than Bitcoin. So if you're hodling your altcoins, make sure you got good assets. Don't ape into, ape coin and think it's going to be a long standard for 25 years. Know what you're investing in, or at least set your expectations appropriately. So now we're going to get back into the geopolitical side of things. And oh man, there's been chaos on campuses this week, Jason. Chaos on campuses. And there's been open efforts to suppress free speech and open debate so bad that the University of Southern California will not even have a commencement speaker at all. Zero at their upcoming ceremony. The institution canceled a speech from its valedictorian because their valedictorian has a pro-Palestine stance. So they canceled all the speakers. These types of violations of freedom of speech are going to lead to violence, because once governments start coming for your ability to speak, then they start coming for your ability to do everything else. Right now, as a result of this move, USC has been rocked with protests and criticism from almost every direction after it announced that they would cancel their valedictorian speech. And the name of their valedictorian is Asna Tabassum, a fourth-year student from Chino Hills, California, majoring in biomedical engineering. Okay, and Tabassum is a Muslim, a first-generation South Asian American Muslim, and she told NBC4 that she was disappointed by the school's decision to not have her speak at the graduation, and called it a campaign to silence her voice, essentially. And that wasn't the only incident. At Yale University, hundreds of students constructed an encampment of tents outside of a board of trustees meeting to show solidarity with students at Columbia University that were doing something similar. And organizers stated they will not leave until Yale divests from all military weapons manufacturing, regardless of source or destination. See, the student body of academia, the faculty bodies of academia are starting to realize that the institutions that they either work for or study under are essentially cutouts and extensions of the military industrial complex. And tacitly, they understand that their participation within the standard operating procedures of these institutions may, in time, lead to their complicity. And let's not forget that Yale is the home of Skull and Bones 322. We all know who the Skull and Bones members were and what they've done over time, but we're not going to go into that in today's episode. So we've also got some more counter attacks that were happening in the Middle East. There was a purported Israeli counterattack against Iran that was launched earlier this week. There was no footage that I was able to uncover that actually showed an impact of a missile. There were remains of missiles that were found in Iraq that came up on some some OSINT feeds. So what appears to have happened based upon that is there was a decision that was made to find out where those missile interceptions took place, and they took place in Iraq. And initially, there were reports of a U.S. airstrike that struck the headquarters of the Popular Mobilization Forces in the Babil province of Iraq, better known as Babylon province. So interesting how they there's an airstrike over Babylon, literally, but it was not the United States that committed that airstrike. Purportedly, they denied it. So no one's really claimed responsibility for it, which I found to be very bizarre. So it's either the United States Air Force or the Israeli Air Force, one of the two. And also, the United States expectedly vetoed a Palestinian bid for full UN membership that was sponsored by Russia. And speaking of Russia, Russia has now openly called for sanctions against Israel, stating that they are an aggressor nation and must be punished. So expect to see some serious targeting of Vladimir Putin sooner rather than later, ladies and gentlemen, because he's crossed the Rubicon and essentially grasped the third rail with both hands and is still talking. So look out, ladies and gentlemen. Exciting events are coming. And speaking of more bellicose proclamations, our current Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, Mike Johnson, has shifted the axis of evil from the Bush era, from Iraq, Iran, and North Korea. It is now Russia, China, and Iran. And they were always the target from the beginning, ladies and gentlemen. Let's not forget that. The war on terror was a war on you and the world. And this is where we are. Speaking of the world, back in 2002, there was an election campaign in Ireland for the Dublin South Central District in Ireland. And there was a candidate from the immigration control platform that predicted that within 10 years from 2002, the foreign-born population of Dublin would reach 20% of the population of the city. The media at the time accused her of spreading, hate, disinformation, misinformation, these types of things. Well, 9 years later, Dublin City was 20% foreign-born, 21% foreign-born. So when you're ahead of your time, when you see trends advancing, usually you're going to be silenced by the predominant establishment. But this is another signpost to say, when you discover through your own research that something is a fact and it contradicts what an authority has written down, you must abandon the authority and base your reasoning on your own findings. And that's not me saying that. That's Leonardo da Vinci, ladies and gentlemen, the author of the painting of the Sistine Chapel's ceiling. So that happened. And let's take a look at some of the casualty numbers from the Levant's conflicts in Lebanon. So as of the 16th of April of this year, in Lebanon internally, this is strictly to Lebanese numbers, 92,000 have been displaced from war, approximately 1,324 casualties, 340 deaths, 289 hospitalizations with injuries. Breakdown of casualties by sex are 88% male and 12% female. And the casualties by nationality are 95% Lebanese, 3% Syrian, and 2% Palestinian. 59% of the casualties are individuals between the ages of 25 to 44 years, in other words, fighting age men. The most common forms of injury were 45% were blunt force trauma, 32% were blast exposure, and 18% was chemical exposure, which made me open my eyes. 18% from chemical exposure? That means that chemical warfare is being used in the Lebanese front by the Israeli occupation. So I don't know what those weapons are, but that's very telling. It's very telling indeed, especially considering that it was chemical warfare that was the use case for invading Syria in the first place and invading Iraq in the first place. Weapons of mass destruction, chemical warfare. And now we have Lebanese soldiers dying from chemical exposure on the front. It's very interesting. Also, coming back to DC, outside the Israeli embassy. This took place sometime within the last couple of days, I believe. A well-known figure in the pro-Israel movement, his name is Ezra Weinblatt. As he was leaving the Israeli embassy, he was caught on film attacking anti-war protesters, hit one woman in the face, and destroyed the demonstrators' audio equipment. He was promptly arrested by police. So Mr. Weinblatt is likely going to be going to jail for a while. Also, this week there was a horrific stabbing on live television of a bishop in Sydney, Australia, named Marmari Emmanuel. He's an Assyrian Christian priest, and he forgave his attacker and those who sent him. Interestingly, the attacker had a knife that was supposed to retract from like a small retractable blade handle, and it did not successfully extend, and he actually ended up cutting off his own fingers of his other hand. So it was a miracle that Bishop Emmanuel survived that attack. But there have been at least 2 high-profile attacks against Christian priests over the course of the last week. And these are priests that spoke out against the lockdown, spoke out against the inoculation, spoke out against the wars. So I unfortunately don't think that those attacks are going to stop anytime soon. So if you are in these places, it might be a good idea to ensure that you are appropriately protected if you choose to go to these places. This is big news as well. UK insurers have refused to pay Nord Stream because the blasts were quote unquote government backed, according to them. Now, the legal team representing Lloyd's, which is a very high powered insurer based out of the UK, and Arch, also of the UK, have stated that since Nord Stream explosions were, quote, more likely than not to be inflicted by a government, close quote, they have no responsibility to pay for damages to the pipelines. And to succeed with that defense, the companies will presumably be compelled to prove in court who carried the attacks out in order to get any money back. So that means that there's going to be a discovery process, and we're going to find out once and for all who was responsible, whether it was America, whether it was Ukraine or someone else. You know, we shall see, because it's been part of the fog of war up until recently. And very strangely, this week there was a nationwide outage of the 911 system. So I don't know who is behind it. I don't know what the root cause was of it, but the 911 system is not controlled domestically by the United States of America anymore. It's actually been sold out to third parties. Private companies now run the 911 system domestically in the United States. This is what privatization gets you, ladies and gentlemen. You get bad actors that run it into the ground. And moving on to Silicon Valley, there was a group of approximately 28 employees of Google that took over Google Cloud CEO Thomas Kurian's office in Sunnyvale, California this week, and called upon the company to drop Project Nimbus. And now, Project Nimbus, for those that are not familiar, is a cloud computing project of the Israeli army. And Project Nimbus is used for, among other things, as a targeting system in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. And these engineers, not wanting to be complicit in genocide, essentially demanded that this be divested from. Unfortunately for them, they were arrested about 8 hours into a sit-in his office, and then they were subsequently fired by Google. So I don't think that that's the end of that story at all. More to come for that, for sure. Now, Iran has issued a pretty stern warning to the West, and I wanted to read this to the audience. They issued a statement, and this is my last talking point for the day, ladies and gentlemen. The Iranian Armed Forces issued a statement this week directed towards the United States and Israel specifically, but probably more Israel, I would say. Now, the chief spokesman of the Iranian Armed Forces, his name is Brigadier General Abolfazi Shikarchi. Okay. And he had 3 talking points. The first is as follows. We remind the leaders of the United States, UK, France, and Germany to stop supporting the corrupt, lawless, terrorist, and child-killing regime of Israel. That's the first one. Second one. But if anyone, including you and that desperate and helpless regime, wants to do something stupid, we will respond stronger than the previous response to the aggressor. And the third is we recommend that instead of condemning the legitimate and legal action of the Islamic Republic of Iran, be wise and do not support the terrorist Zionist regime and do not throw yourself into the burning fire. So this rhetoric is really picking up some serious steam, ladies and gentlemen. And the possibility of a violent outcome raises day after day. And for those of you that are imagining what a full-scale war between Iran and Israel would look like, there's 3 talking points that I think that would be important to remember. Signposts. 1, expect $10 a gallon gas within a week. Number 1. Number 2, expect every store that you can find to be out of food within a month. And number 3, expect to see severe cuts in the availability of that very same fuel. So even if it is $10 a gallon, your local gas station might not have any because it's probably going to get all of its fuel drained by thieves because no one's going to be able to buy it at that price. Expect to see gas station attendants getting held up at gunpoint to turn pumps on. That is coming, ladies and gentlemen, if this conflict escalates any further. So get yourself some jerry cans, be ready, be prepared, start growing food, and don't spend all of your time in front of your trading desk. And that, Jason, is the end of my talking points. Back over to you, sir.
Amazing as always, and sage advice there at the end for sure, especially for guys like me who are always trading the markets. Man, that's really wild, dude. So with that said, I don't want to spend too much time on TA today. I'm going to let the audience go play here shortly and enjoy their day as well. But there are a few things that I do want to just take quick note of, because I have been trading this range here for Bitcoin on the 1 hour over the weekend. So I've been taking my scalps here. And there was this nice move down and kind of this pump up. And now we're kind of flagging out, right? So we had this little bit of a flag. And we came down below the 21 MA and sort of consolidated there. And then we flagged back up. So right now, looks like we're kind of flagging out again. So with your 1 hour stochastics curving down, I'm wondering if this has to come down to the 21 MA or even this point of control before the price action can move back up, or if this is consolidating in kind of a cup and handle here. Let's see if we can highlight that. There we go. You know, is this kind of what we're looking at here, and this is your flag? Like, is this flagging out on you already here? Not seeing the divergence that would indicate that this is going to flag out, but the odd thing is I've been seeing the price action do this, and I'm not necessarily seeing the divergences on the time frames that I always look on them for, specifically like 15-minute, 1 hour, 4 hour. Sometimes you have to get down into some of the smaller time frames or just watch the price action itself just for higher lows and higher highs, as we're seeing here right now. You know, so you can try to find the divergence, like where is the divergence, you know, what was pushing the price action here. So was it kind of some hidden, is it like some hidden bullish on the 3-minute there? So that's what pushed you. So you're really going to have to search the smaller time frames and see what's going on. So if you push above this point of control, then your next target is going to be above $65,500, probably around 65, 687, somewhere in that area. If this flag plays out, if it doesn't play out, as I was looking at previously, if you look at your retracements here, you've got this point of control. Price action could easily get held up there. You could even just be forming an ascending triangle. Something like this. Okay, and that's a bullish pattern as well. That's going to have a more aggressive measured move. That's probably going to take you closer back to around 70,000. That would squeeze a lot of shorts. That'd look something like that. That'd actually take you back up to around 71,000, and that's above a critical resistance level. As you can see, I've got these two yellow lines highlighted. So if the price action gets back above those, I would look for an explosive move, probably a new all-time high, potentially even this month. Obviously, we do have a monthly close coming up here in 11 days, so we'll keep an eye out for that as price action kind of evolves this month. But this price action looks pretty bullish for me for Bitcoin right now. You've got higher lows, higher highs, continuation pattern, no bearish divergence appearing on the 1 hour. Starting to flag out here. Even if you see a retest of the 21 MA or this POC here, still very bullish. Even if you come down to this golden pocket, say around $61,666, or even a little bit lower, even if you came down to the 786 and closed there around 60.9, you're still creating higher highs, higher lows, especially if you make a higher close on those 1 hour candles than about 61,000. So keep an eye out for that type of price action. You know, obviously we can still see a little bit of a dipsy-do dunkaroo here, come back down and retest those levels. Obviously, if you see a break of that action, 1 hour candle close below $60,000, I would definitely watch out for where that might go. You're going to be checking 55, 50,000, maybe even 40,000 if we break that level. So watch out below for that. Just real quick, we'll check Bitcoin dominance. 4 hour did break out of this ascending type of a triangle, but the follow through was not there. Okay, so I was looking for dominance to come up to this box once again. Still could not make it up there. It's creeping closer. Got up to around 57%, so maybe that was the top for dominance. It's possible. Keep in mind the measured move was in this area, so we may still see some type of a fake out or something going into Monday. I really would be careful with the price action this weekend, because I don't think they're just going to run it up over the weekend and not have some type of a pullback Sunday into Monday. So there's going to be a CME gap more than likely. I don't remember where CME closed. Let's take a quick look there. CME closed at 64,355. So that's where your gap is at, as long as price action is to the upside from that level. So just keep that in mind. I mean, we're barely above that right now, so just something to take note of. But another thing to keep in mind too, the price action on Bitcoin dominance has broken back down into this ascending triangle. So either we see a retest of that pattern or a breakdown of it back down to this 200 daily, which is around 53%. So that might mean an interesting move for altcoins if that happens. If we take a look at Ethereum right now, on the 4 hour, Ethereum's flagging out pretty nicely for us with some bullish divergence. It's having some follow through. You can see the divergence here where this closed higher than this price action, but this close on the RSI was much higher in relation to this one, and it did carry the price as it continued to tap on that line of support. And now on the 4 hour, the RSI is above the 50 level. Stochastics are above the overbought level. And this actually looks pretty strong for ETH on the 4 hour. It's an odd looking pattern. I don't really want to say what this thing is other than just kind of it looks like more of a descending type of a triangle, and it's so weird because I've been seeing these patterns where it looks like it's a bearish type of a pattern, but you have to look for the bullish divergence, and as long as that plays out, you see the follow through on your indicators, likely we'll see more of a move up for Ethereum. And if we see some 4 hour closures above 35.19, where we're seeing this local point of control, I would look for Ethereum to retest the $4,000 level from there. So just a quick picture for ETH. So we take a look at the ETH BTC pair. A lot of people were getting really bearish on this pair, but keep in mind Ethereum is always going to follow Bitcoin, so it's not going to get too bearish, right? Unless we're in a bear market type of a scenario, or a black swan type of a scenario. So you're seeing this consolidation here. It's almost like an inverse head and shoulders that's forming. Something like that. So if we see that pattern break out again, we'll be retesting, point of control, which for this pair is right around 0.51 Satoshis. We do have these key moving averages, which I've talked about before, 200 daily and 200 weekly moving average. Just above that at 0.54 and 0.578. So keep an eye out for those levels for the ETH BTC pair. Be interesting to see how the daily and the weekly closes over the next 24 to 48 hours for Ethereum and Bitcoin. So we jump over real quick to US dollar tether. So I'm zoomed in there just a little bit. Let's zoom back out. And if we take a look at the 4-hour, this looks like weakness for tether dominance. So if we were to see this come back down, that would be good for me and anyone else who's holding crypto right now. And you got golden pocket just around this red line that I have highlighted, and then you've got point of control, which is even lower, around 4%. So could we see that revisited? Yeah, definitely. We could even extend this out here a little bit, and that would be around your 786 retracement. So that looks pretty good. Looks like a bullish picture with the tether dominance. As we jump over to total 3, we're flagging out there on the smaller time frames. Let's zoom out a little bit. This 4-hour looks excellent. We broke out of a consolidative pattern. So that's interesting. We had a chubby triangle break out there. Those had been pretty bearish patterns leading up to this point, but we did have a bullish divergence. You can see these closures here lower than this closure, but much lower on the RSI here in correspondence to this closure and this long wick, and then continued support on this move on the RSI here, and again above the 50 level on the 4-hour. So this is very similar to Ethereum in terms of what we're seeing there. I like this quite a bit actually. If we sort of play with this a little bit, what did we have? This is what we would call like a falling broadening wedge, and this should have a bullish bias and could actually push the total 3 back up to these levels that I was looking for before we had this little stall out on our rally. So this looks pretty good for me. For your altcoins, looks pretty good. So if we get a little retest of this pattern, don't be surprised. Even if we came back down and formed like a head and shoulder, if we made something like that, still stay bullish, okay? Because we are getting a little overbought on the 4-hour stochastic, so we may need to cool off a little bit after we make this move over the weekend. Again, be careful. Low volume on the weekends, they're going to try to push price up, and it can be manipulated going into the week on Monday as the institutions jump back into the fray. So jumping over to BNB, third largest cryptocurrency by market cap. I'm still holding my long position. I did take a little bit of profit when things got dicey a couple weekends ago, but the majority of that trade is still open. And it does look to be playing out in a similar manner to what we just saw for total 3. So not much of a surprise there. Keep in mind there's kind of a pattern within a pattern, an ascending triangle that broke down and then formed a larger ascending triangle. If the price action breaks back in to this smaller triangle, it would be very bullish, and that would probably correspond with this point of control right around $584. All right, real quick, just an update on DXY. Seems to be stalling out a little bit on the 4-hour, losing momentum on the indicators. It is consolidating, however. So keep in mind, once again, we could still see a bit of a move up for DXY and a bit of a move down going into Monday for crypto. So just keep an eye on this flag here. We really would like to see this break down. And then the larger picture would be that you topped out here, but I'm not 100% convinced on that. Rejection at the 70 level on the RSI is a positive sign, however. Something that concerns me is the stochastics are still in this overbought territory with the blue above the red, so potentially still in a position of strength, consolidating there in that flag. Really would like to see that break back down. No divergence there really telling me one way or another. We'll have to see again how that flags out. So we were covering the Theta price action a little bit as Chris was going over his report, and just touching on this pair, the Theta BTC pair does look like it's consolidating, does look like it's getting a clean bounce actually off the critical 200 daily moving average. That is the play that I made on my legendary BNB trade, so take that for what you will, folks, but this looks like a cup and handle. And this makes me want to jump back into Theta, because I did have a nice position in Theta in the last bull run, and you're talking about getting above this point of control and challenging the 200 weekly moving average for this pair. And from current price action, you're talking about around a 90% move versus Bitcoin. So keep an eye out for Theta BTC. And if you want a dark horse, folks, if you want to throw your money at a wall, SPCT, Spectra Chain, Bitcoin Layer 2 did just hit MEXC. Hopefully has bottomed here with some bullish divergence on the 1 hour. So I have taken a secondary position on MEXC in this coin. I am holding some on MetaMask as well, as I did swap this token, unfortunately, at a much higher price. So I will be holding this for the duration of the bull run. The tech is good, so keep that one in mind. And one more that I'll put on your radar before I let you folks jump into whatever it is that you're looking to do, and that is Gearbox. You can find that on MEXC. All right. We're going to look at a larger consolidation here on this coin. And we kind of got a bit of a cup and handle forming there. All right. So as we zoom in on that, you potentially got a play there. If you break this overhead resistance, maybe even a bit of an inverse head and shoulder there, like a slanted inverse head and shoulder. And I know that's kind of hard to see for some people, but that's definitely a potential to play out for that pattern. So this was put on my radar by my mentor, and we'll just continue to keep an eye on this. Look into the fundamentals on your own time as always. Your measured move is going to take you up to around 45 cents for Gearbox. So about a 90% move there as well. So a couple high risk coins at the end there. Hope you enjoyed the show today, folks. As always, thank you for hanging in there. If you made it this far, please honk the like button on your way out. Get subscribed to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. We'll bring you these podcasts every weekend going forward to keep you updated with both geopolitical and technical events in the Bitcoin market and the entire world, the entire clown world. So with that said, take care, much love, God bless, and we will talk to you soon.